What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Geppetto's Creature Shop. Today we'll be working on this Smart Lab snap together skull model that I found at Goodwill for a whopping $2.99. It contains a book about your noggin and the skull model itself. I was recently speaking with David over at DR Toys, and I said that he was the inspiration for this build, as he's always posting really cool finds at the Goodwill. And my Goodwills around here are not that great. I never find any cool stuff. So here I am checking out the model itself. It seemed to be missing pieces up top, but I figured out that those were the actual teeth that were loose in the box. So it comes basically with two halves of the brain, the snap together skull, some teeth, which I thought was pretty cool, a stand, and those glow-in-the-dark kind of googly eyeballs. As you can see, the brain here is labeled with all the parts. For our purpose here, we're just going to end up gluing it together. And here's the bottom half of the skull. I thought for some reason that this piece had come off, but I guess it doesn't. I don't know why I was trying to get it off, but in any event, here's the other half of the skull and getting it all pieced together just to kind of take a look at it. It said the eyeballs glow in the dark, but this plastic here is reminiscent of kind of glow in the dark plastic, but turns out it was not. And here we have the lower jaw and the teeth. You can see the elastics there on the lower jaw that allow it to hinge to kind of open and close. I end up eliminating that feature as I'm mostly going to make this kind of just a display skull, and obviously with elastics hanging off of it wouldn't be very realistic. So here is the skull all together. It looks pretty goofy. I mean, it is kind of cool, but these eyeballs don't stay in well. They actually kind of hit the brain portion, and as you can see, the top's a little warped, but get that to fit. And there's the bottom jaw with the elastics to kind of show you how your jaw would actually work. So as I had stated, the first thing what we need to do is get rid of these elastics on the jaw, and also get rid of these little tabs that held the elastics on. So I bust out the X-Acto knife and just kind of shave those off. Cut away from yourself, kids. Let's get it off the stand. Let's get everything out of it here. Make it a little easier to work on. Cut away. And there we go. Flying into Neverland. Just cleaning up the sides here after cutting those off. Kind of smooth it out a little bit. And here we have an already cool looking skull. So now we're moving on to the teeth here, and I wanted to knock out a couple of these teeth just to kind of show age and wear, and make it a little bit more interesting than just a standard skull. So I took one tooth off the top and one tooth off the bottom. I didn't want to go too crazy with it, as you'll see. Kind of just subtle enough to give it some kind of aesthetics. After gluing the jaw in place, I took it outside and gave it a flat black primer. I went ahead and glued the brain together and gave it a coat of my favorite Citadel base color, Typhus Corrosion. This gave it a nice dry, matte surface to go ahead and add some color to. And the first color I'm choosing is gray. Just going to throw it in some water here and get a watered down gray color, just to kind of run into all the cracks and everything, as our brains inside of the body are gray, mostly grayish. even though this will be an exposed brain, I wanted to at least add some gray. While that was drying, I decided to start on the skull itself. First color we're putting on here is khaki, as no skull is really pure white, and I didn't want to have brush strokes showing, so I just grabbed a cheapo McDonald's napkin and kind of got it in there, and mostly kind of like a sponge technique. I just kind of started dabbing it over the skull. Back onto the brain while the skull dries, and as you can see, I have some watered down pink here. And again, just kind of quickly going over the whole skull itself in the pink. I mean, I don't want to make a purely pink skull, and I want it to kind of be rotted a little bit, almost zombie-ish. But I thought it still needed a little bit of pink to kind of mimic reality. Back on the skull here, I added a little bit of white to the khaki to kind of make this beige color, and went ahead with the same technique with the napkin and just started adding some lighter highlights to the skull itself. And now I'm pretty much going straight white, although I still use the little lid there with some of the other colors on it just to kind of mix everything together. And the white will just really give some highlights and really show off the cracks there that are shown in darker color. After painting the teeth whitish color, I went over them with Tamiya Smoke, which is basically the equivalent of the Citadel Nuln oil. Kind of just gave it a wash here, just to kind of get the black in between the teeth and define those a little better. And then I just kind of dabbed it off with the napkin here, just to give it a little bit of dimension. And back to our brain here, I grabbed some forest green acrylic, watered that down, and just kind of went over a few spots here to kind of show like rot or just kind of a damaged brain, I guess you could say. I didn't go too crazy with the green, and in the end it kind of really doesn't show through too much, but I know it's there and it does add to the dimension of it. I also used the Tamiya Smoke to fill in the cracks and highlight some of the darker areas on the skull. Despite this being a skull build, I wanted to make the brain look as realistic as possible, so I grabbed some Tamiya Clear and just went over the whole brain with the clear to kind of give it that wet, alive look. I then added some Tamiya Clear Red to kind of give it some blood and some vessels as if it was still alive. And here's how we started. A little goofy, kind of cool, but definitely in need of a makeover. And here's what we came up with. And here we have it. The skull with a brand new paint job, some modifications done on the teeth, a fully glued and secured jaw, and even a prize inside. And here is the brain installed into the skull, and even though it is a skull, I did want to have the brain seem still somewhat alive. Put a lot of gloss clear on it to give it that wet look, and everything else that you saw in the video. I think I'll just be displaying this as a skull, but it's cool to know that the brain is in there. As always, I hope you enjoyed the build. I had a lot of fun doing it, and stick around for the glamour shots, and until the next one, be well.